to my channel. This morning we are thankful for adorable mugs to drink our coffee out of in the morning. It's about a week out from NaNoWriMo, which is, I need to basically catch up on my whole process. I did do some planning, the video I think from maybe 2 weeks ago or a week and a half or so regarding kind of like the plot points that I'd like to have figured out and just like my checklist for NaNoWriMo. I did do some planning during the filming of that video, obviously, and then I think where I left it off the last vlog was that I needed to get into my brain dump document and just like really go full throttle into the brain dump situation. And that has just not happened because for the past 1 to 2 weeks, I have basically just like dove headfirst into learning about other certain things that are going on in the world right now, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Education is really important, but it does mean that everything else in my life has basically slowed down quite a bit because of how hyper-focused I have been on that other stuff, which means that we never got to that brain dump document. And now it's, you know, a week or so away from NaNoWriMo and I really need to finish getting all of that ready. But hopefully you can take this as reassurance that it's okay if you've just started planning for NaNoWriMo now. There is still time to get a solid outline figured out and get some planning done and be ready to jump into NaNoWriMo. You're okay. It's a little close as far as timing goes, but we're okay. So the plan for today is to get pretty much the rest of the plotting done and kind of to finish, or not finish the brain dump document because it's never really done, but just get most of my ideas out of my brain, brainstorm some more, do some kind of like discovery writing within the brainstorm document, which is something that I do very often. It's something that I do to figure out stories. It's something that I do to try and get past like writer's block, or if I've run into an issue in the plot, I will sit down and basically just brain dump until the ideas start coming again. I've talked about that before. It kind of feels like emptying the pipeline. Sometimes it feels like you need to get all of the not so great ideas out before you can get to the further down the pipeline where the good ideas are. In the past for projects, I have kind of just done a very general brain dump and like everything that comes to mind is what comes out. We're gonna change it up a little bit this morning and I have 6 different questions or prompts or things to keep in mind during the brain dump, just so that I can kind of make sure that I'm on the right track for setting up a really strong story. One thing that I have struggled with quite a bit is understanding my characters to the degree that I need to in order to tell the story and tell a really good story. I find that I really like plot and world building, and the external things are very exciting to me, I guess. And I think because I get so excited about those things, I put more energy into those automatically. And I need to get into better habits of starting with the character first, because I do believe that most stories are character driven, at least the ones that really like hit home for us. And the strongest stories for people to connect to are stories that have people who are worth connecting to. So character-driven stories is what I'm trying to lean towards and trying to like develop my skills around. So I have 6 questions to keep in mind as I'm doing this brain dump, and by the end of the brain dump I want to have these figured out just so that I can understand my character. So question number 1 is, who is Estelle? Estelle is the name of the main character. Later in this vlog, I will chat a little bit more about the project. So I want to know, who is Estelle? That's a pretty open-ended question because I kind of want the brain dump to get me to the point where I understand the most important parts of her for this story. What is the main lesson or takeaway that I want her to have throughout this whole journey? Number 3 is, what does she want? Like, what is her want or her need? What is she trying to get from this whole journey? And then I have, what is her internal barrier? So her internal protagonist or her emotional arc, or like what is she kind of like fighting against within herself? And then also, what is her external barrier? And then I also have number 6 as, how does it end? So number 1 is, who is Estelle? And I feel like that speaks for itself when we're talking about like figuring out the status quo for the main character, who they are, where they've come from, why they've found themselves in this situation in the first place. And then the final question that I want to keep in mind, how does it end, obviously lends to how she's going to get to the end and how her emotions are going to change, how her like character arc is going to change throughout the story. So most of the questions are pretty generic, but at the end of the day, they are really heavily focused on the character and what their arc is going to be throughout the story. And I think that this is just the perfect amount of chaos from the brain dump and like just word vomit. And organization. It's organized chaos. We know in general what we're kind of trying to get from this exercise, I guess. We know what we're trying to find in the pipeline by doing this brain dump, and we know that it's going to be character and character arc focused, but we're also keeping the chaotic factor that I bring with me with any creative endeavor that I have, which is to just brain dump and get everything out and just kind of let the brain run wild and see what happens. So now, because I feel like I've already been talking a lot, we're gonna jump into it. I think I'm gonna do some sprints. It's about 8:30. I'll probably do a half-hour sprint. I'm gonna read over these kind of questions or things to keep in mind again, and then we're just gonna write. I think I'm gonna do it on my laptop because I feel like the words are gonna come quickly today and handwriting is not gonna cut it. And I'll just check in with you after that and we'll see how we go. Went for a 40-minute sprint instead of a 30-minute sprint just because I was getting so much done in the brain dump doc. Just if you're curious, I generally don't count words in brain dump documents, but I've written about 1,200 words. I've also got a list of kind of like themes that are going on for this story, and that includes things like environmentalism, ancestry, and industrialism. This is the thing about brain dump documents. They're always very, like I've said, chaotic. They always have just like the most random stuff that I really need to like whittle down. But I also started to write out basically the entire plot. So a couple of these plot points I already had because I had done the whole like figuring out those main plot points that I like to have before I start on a story. So I already knew some of those and I had a really good idea of what was going to happen, but I kind of just started typing. This is something that has been very helpful for me and I like to do, and I've tried to do more often, is to kind of like start by writing out the blurb, just because the blurb gives you a quick summary of like the status quo for the main character, which is important, and then it also sets up the promise of the story, because the whole idea is that you should be able to read the blurb, and from the blurb you should get a good idea of what you can expect from the story, the kind of promises that are being made, what kind of story it's going to be, what the journey is going to be for the main character. Because that's such a short piece of content, but it's really, really important because it obviously like lays out the whole book or what you can expect from the book. I like to try and write that at the beginning because I think that it gives me a better idea of what the goals are going to be and what promises I've made and what promises need to be fulfilled, I guess. I definitely still have some revising to do on the blurb for the back of the book, but we're actually getting to a good point with it. I'm feeling pretty good. Like I feel like I'll probably do another 20-minute sprint or so and kind of try to like finish getting the blurb done. But I kind of like used those prompts that I had that I listed before to really get into this brain dump, and I talked about like who Estelle is, the main character, who she is, where she came from, why she is going on this journey, what her internal conflict is, or the barrier that she has to actually like achieving the things that she wants to achieve. I know what she wants. Right now, thankfully, it's pretty clear what she wants, I think. Like, I've got a pretty good idea, and like what she wants slightly shifts before the end of the story just because she learns more, and with knowledge, generally what we want is going to change the more we learn. I also know how it's going to end, which is great. I was a little bit worried because I feel like I have a habit of writing darker stories maybe, or like more intense emotional stories. But something that came to me with this story was the kind of just air that it was a bit more lighthearted. There are obviously like some intense things that happen, but in general, it does have more lighthearted aspects than a lot of the other stories that I've written. And it's reassuring to see that like even in this brain dump document that I've been doing, that is starting to show. Like I can tell that it's a bit more lighthearted, some like cute, entertaining things happen. Nothing is too intense except for like a couple moments that are important near the end of the story. But I'm really glad that that is coming across as well. And I also wrote, like I know how it's going to end. I also have some comp titles, which are both older movies, actually. I think I'm gonna have to like update the comp titles, or maybe I'm not. I actually don't know, like, I don't think there are really requirements for comp titles. I think it can kind of be anything, but generally in the publishing industry, they try to use more recent comp titles of popular books or shows or movies or whatever, that people that have been very popular, just because that's a really good marketing tactic to get people to consume your work. If you have comp titles that kind of like speak to things that they enjoy, then they'll know that, for example, if your comp titles are like Game of Thrones meets New Girl, I don't know how that would work, but if someone wants to write that, let me know. Sounds hilarious. But for example, if those were the comp titles, then, you know, people who are a fan of both Game of Thrones and New Girl would probably gravitate towards your book. So the comp titles that I wrote down are Atlantis, The Lost Empire. I'll put the cover here, as well as How to Train Your Dragon. But also, I'm pretty sure that I used Atlantis, The Lost Empire as an initial comp title for Between the Waves. I haven't used it in like probably a year and a half, but when I was first brainstorming for Between the Waves, I think Atlantis, The Lost Empire was also a comp title. I really like that movie. I think it's just such a fun adventure to like a secret world. I love tropes and like patterns like that in storytelling. So I wouldn't be surprised if I have used that one before. But also these are probably temporary. You look so cozy, but I'm so sorry because we're gonna go for a walk. So I ended up going to a friend's for the night last night, which was really nice. I felt like I really needed to kind of like get out of the city and shake things up a little bit. It was wonderful. We went and got some work done last night, and then we also did some more work this morning and went for a cold dip and had a little workout, and it was just like such a wonderful day. And honestly, I think that the brain dump document is pretty good. Like I've kind of answered all of the questions that I was hoping to, which is amazing, because I was kind of worried, because I know that I really have to work for making the plot more character driven and just making the story more character focused. And I know that's something that I'm working on, but it actually went really, really well. And between the brain dump document as well as the little mini plot outline that I have, I feel like I'm in a really, really good position to get started on NaNoWriMo. I still haven't decided if I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth with the plot. I think I'll probably prep the first like 3 chapters or so, just so that I know what I'm going to start writing, or like I'll prep the first act or something like that, just so that I can get a little bit of the story outlined, so that I have a little bit of structure when I actually start in November. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to smile, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.